Speaking as a tool for growing your network is among the best tools that I can actually suggest to any professional. So the way this would work, first of all, you want to make sure that when you do have a speaking opportunity, that you don't speak in front of your competitors, educate them on all that you know, and then end up with nothing. Instead, you want to pick the right audience. So the right audience would be probably teaming with your prospective clients. If you're an HR consultant, you're going to want to have a lot of HR people in the audience. The important point is that there are things you can do before, during, and after your speaking engagement that will allow you to build a relationship. And in fact, I would say here's the mantra. The purpose for speaking is to start or deepen a relationship with the people either in the audience, the people you want in the audience, or the people you hope are going to be in the audience. If you look at everything you do as a speaker in that way, you will be far more likely to create some lasting connections from that. Most of us tend to speak, we leave the podium, we're done. That's not a prescription for building relationships. What I would suggest instead is that you want to call people ahead of time. Just did this with a client yesterday. So he had just spoken, and he actually called a couple of his clients ahead of time and was blown away with how valuable the insight was from the people that he called. And what he found is he actually changed the nature of his presentation because of the input he got from a couple of his clients. It also gives you a reason to call people that you otherwise have no reason to call. So for example, if there's somebody that you've met and you don't know all that well, it could be a neighbor of yours that's moved into your neighborhood and would actually be a fantastic person to have as part of your business network, you could call and invite them to your presentation. And the reality is you're calling and inviting them to the talk and you're asking for their input on the topic. Even if they don't come to your presentation, you can get knee-deep into whatever's important and critical to them in less than 5 minutes. I've personally done this and found it to be a very powerful tool for me learning more about what my audience wants to hear. And I think, frankly, any professional speaker, at least, ought to be doing this. So, once you've actually, and I would suggest you probably call a handful of people. Once you've done that, I would then suggest, what are you looking for during the talk? So during the talk, you're going to get asked questions, or you're going to have people come up to you at the break, and they're going to say, okay, what do you do in this situation? And what I would suggest is that there's two versions of that. One, you can answer the question very quickly, and when you do, you might ask for their card and say, hey, look, I'd love to find out how that actually whole thing plays out. The other version of it is, it seems like it's going to take 5 minutes just to understand the facts of what they're talking about. In those circumstances, particularly if you've got a line of people who are sitting there waiting to talk to you, you might want to say, hey, look, this sounds like it might be a fairly involved issue. Why don't you give me your card and I promise I'll follow up and I'd be happy to talk to you about it later. What I found is that some of the folks that I've coached who have spoken for 20 years, when they start realizing that the purpose for speaking is to start a relationship, and they realize the name of the game is to really create a connection while they're there speaking, it then gives them a clear idea as to what they need to do and follow through. So again, where most people fall down is they don't follow through. They don't have a system for follow through, which is one of the tools I'll talk about, but they don't follow through after they've spoken. So if you get a stack of cards, the typical story is they let the stack kind of sit there on their desk, eventually letting it go and throwing it away 2 months later because they've done nothing with it. That's not going to be you. Let's at least hope. All right. So again, the final piece, follow up. I would suggest you want a handful of calls ahead of your talk, a handful of calls after your talk. Then you're doing something that's much more akin to what I said earlier, which is you're using speaking to start a relationship.